What if I told you that everything you know about human history is a lie? They say civilization began 6,000 years ago. But what if that timeline was off? What if the evidence we've been ignoring all this time was right in front of us? Today you'll see 5 artifacts so bizarre, so completely out of place, that they may just shatter your idea of what's possible. From a 150,000-year-old pipeline to a machine older than modern science, each one is a crack in the story of human history. And just when you think you've got it figured out, there's another twist. These aren't wild theories or bedtime stories. They are real discoveries, studied by experts. And they all have one thing in common. No one can explain them. If you think you're ready for the truth, stay with me until the end. Because the final artifact on this list might just change everything you think you know about time itself. Electricity. We think of it as a modern marvel. Light bulbs, batteries, and smartphones. All inventions from the past 150 years, right? Wrong. In 1938, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm König was digging near Baghdad, Iraq. Among the pottery shards and ancient tools, he found something strange. A clay jar, about 6 inches tall. Pretty ordinary, right? But inside that jar was something unexpected. A copper cylinder, and inside that, an iron rod. If this sounds familiar, that's because it's the exact setup for a battery. Clay jar, copper, iron, and even traces of an acidic substance, like vinegar or wine, were found in similar jars at the site. Here's where it gets weird. This battery was dated to around 250 BCE. That's 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta created the first modern battery. So if this was a battery, what was it used for? No ancient texts mention electricity. No one was writing about charging their ancient iPhones. But some researchers have a theory. One idea? The Baghdad battery was used for electroplating, applying thin layers of metal like gold onto other objects. But if that's true, where did they get the knowledge to do this? Electroplating wasn't officially discovered until 1805. And here's the twist. No ancient electroplating equipment has ever been found. No machines, no wires, nothing. So if it was a battery, what were they powering? Or who were they powering it for? Could they have been given this technology by someone else? Some believe the knowledge may have come from a lost civilization with advanced technology that predates modern history. But here's where it gets chilling. A clay pot, copper, and iron are simple ingredients. They could be replicated with nothing more than common tools and natural materials. So if you can make a battery this easily, why don't we see them everywhere in ancient ruins? The Baghdad battery remains a mystery. The only thing we know for sure? It shouldn't exist. And yet it does. If you thought that was strange, wait until you hear about the map that shows Antarctica without ice. It's 1513, the age of exploration. Sailors are mapping coastlines, discovering new continents, and charting the world. But then, something odd happens. An Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis creates a map of the world. It shows South America, Africa, but also something else, Antarctica. Here's the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. But that's not even the strangest part. The coastline of Antarctica on the map isn't covered in ice. It's drawn as if it's a landmass, not a frozen wasteland. Here's a fact that'll send chills down your spine. Modern technology, like sonar and satellite imaging, confirm that the actual coastline of Antarctica matches what's shown on the Piri Reis Map. That's right. A 500-year-old map shows a continent that's been frozen for over 15,000 years. There's only one explanation that makes sense. Someone saw Antarctica before it froze. Theories? Some claim it's evidence of a pre-Ice Age civilization. Could this lost civilization have mapped the world before the ice came? And if they had that knowledge, what else did they know? What secrets did they leave behind? There's also a darker theory. What if Piri Reis wasn't the one who mapped it? He claimed to have compiled his map using older source maps from the Library of Alexandria. Could one of those maps have come from a time long before us? They say history repeats itself, but what if history is older than we think? If you think this map is unsettling, just wait. What if I told you an object older than humanity had perfectly drilled holes, and no one can explain it? Imagine you're walking through a jungle in Costa Rica. You push through the undergrowth, vines snagging your arms. Suddenly you see it, a perfectly smooth stone sphere, so round it looks like it was made by a machine. But it wasn't. These aren't small stones. They weigh up to 16 tons and are made from granite, a material that's extremely hard to carve. The first question you'd ask, who made them? No one knows, and it's not just one or two of them. There are hundreds scattered across the jungles of Costa Rica. Some of them have been moved to museums, but many remain where they were found. No one knows who made them, why they were made, or how they made them. If you think primitive tools could create something this smooth, think again. Even with modern tools, creating a perfect sphere is extremely difficult. Modern engineers struggle to recreate this level of perfection, and yet these spheres are believed to be over 2,000 years old. Theories? Some say the stones were ceremonial. Others think they might be astronomical markers. But here's the twist. Many of them are so precisely round that even after centuries of weathering, they haven't deformed. If nature didn't shape them, and primitive tools couldn't make them, then who did? Were these spheres a message left behind? A map? Or are they something we aren't supposed to understand? It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure. These stones aren't silent. They're speaking to us. The question is, are we listening? And what will happen if we finally hear them? Stick around. What comes next might change your view of human history forever. In 1901, off the coast of Antarctica, Greece, sponge divers stumbled upon a shipwreck that would change everything. Among the treasures, statues, coins, and jewelry, there was something else. It didn't look like treasure. It looked like a lump of corroded metal covered in barnacles and stone-like growths. It sat in a museum for 2 whole years, ignored. Just another random piece of shipwreck debris. But then, someone noticed something. Deep within the corrosion were teeth. Not animal teeth, gear teeth. Tiny, precisely cut gears. This wasn't random wreckage. It was a machine. A machine from 2,000 years ago. They called it the Antarctica mechanism. When scientists scanned it using X-rays, they were stunned. Inside were over 30 gears meshing perfectly, designed to predict solar eclipses, track the movements of the moon, and chart the positions of planets. Think about that. This was a device so precise, so advanced, it could map the motion of celestial bodies. The level of craftsmanship required wouldn't be seen again for 1,500 years. Not until 14th century Europe, when mechanical clocks first appeared. So who built it? The Greeks? Maybe. But where did they get the knowledge? No other device like it existed at the time. No records of it. No mention of its creation in any text. And here's where it gets stranger. Researchers discovered something that sent shivers down their spines. The complexity of the gears required precise measurements and advanced tools. But the Greeks didn't have access to such tools. Not as far as we know. There's only one explanation that makes sense. Either someone taught them, or they found it. If they found it, where did it come from? Some theories suggest the knowledge came from the fabled Library of Alexandria, a collection of every known text from across the ancient world. But here's the twist. The library burned to the ground. Thousands of texts were lost forever. Or were they? Did a secret society protect this knowledge, passing it down in secret? Or did it come from somewhere not of this world? Was it a relic of something older than Greece? Older than humanity itself? We still don't have an answer, and every attempt to rebuild it has only deepened the mystery. Modern engineers can barely replicate its complexity, even with today's technology. If you're wondering how a 2,000-year-old shipwreck could hold something this advanced, just wait until you hear about what they found in Texas. 1936. A couple walking along Red Creek, Texas, spots a strange-looking rock. It's smooth, unusually heavy, and feels wrong in their hands. Curious, they decide to break it open with a chisel. That's when they see it. Inside, perfectly preserved, is a hammer. Not a stone club or primitive tool. A modern-looking hammer with a wooden handle and an iron head. The question is obvious. How did it get there? The stone encasing the hammer was tested. Its age? 400 million years old. This wasn't just old. It was older than the dinosaurs. That's right. At a time when the only life on land were primitive plants and insects, somehow, this hammer existed. Some people claim it's a hoax, but tests on the hammer itself tell a different story. The iron head is almost pure, something impossible to achieve without modern smelting techniques. How could a hammer be made using techniques that wouldn't exist for hundreds of millions of years? But here's where it gets weird. The wooden handle is partially fossilized, suggesting it's been there for an incomprehensible amount of time. Fossilization doesn't happen overnight. It takes centuries at least. If it's a hoax, it's one of the most elaborate and inexplicable hoaxes in history. If it's real, it changes everything we know about time. Was the hammer pulled from another era? Or did someone leave it for us? And if they did, why? Here's one theory that might keep you up tonight. What if the hammer wasn't trapped in the rock, but it fell into it? If you believe in time slips, strange rips in the fabric of reality, it opens up a terrifying possibility. If timelines can overlap, then objects from the past or the future could accidentally be left behind. Have you ever found something in your house that you don't remember buying? A key, a coin, a trinket that doesn't belong to you? What if you weren't the first person to live there? What if reality is leaking? You see, most people think of time as a straight line, but quantum physics suggests it's more like a web. Sometimes that web can twist, and sometimes objects, people, fall through. If you think that sounds like science fiction, think again. Scientists at CERN have already started experimenting with particles that exist in multiple states at once. Time isn't as stable as we thought, so maybe, just maybe, this hammer didn't belong to the people of the past. Maybe it belonged to someone from our future, and maybe they're still looking for it. 5 artifacts, 5 unsolved mysteries. But there's one question no one can answer. Did they leave them behind? On purpose? If you're still here, you're ready for more. Subscribe to our channel, because these 5, they're just the beginning.